The mindset we have of we are for you, right? Your success is our success, right? I want to be a part of your success. I know if I'm a part of your success and living fully and accomplishing what you want in life, we're going to achieve amazing things.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
Welcome back to the Gentle Art of Crushing It podcast. My name's Randy Smith, and I'll be your host today. And I am really excited to have Don Wenner with us today. Don is the founder of DLP Capital. He has been on the Inc. 5000 for 11 years. He's an author of an amazing book, Building an Elite Organization. He's a father. He's a follower of Jesus, and he's just an overall great guy from what I've seen up to this point. So, Don, welcome to the show. Excited to have you here.
Thank you, Randy. Pleasure to be here.
All right. Well, why don't we just go ahead and jump right in, Don? Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and DLP and what you guys are doing and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you, Randy. So, as you said, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called DLP Capital. We're headquartered where I'm talking to you from right now in St. Augustine, Florida, where my family and I moved to about 9 years ago after we grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Started the company there in 2006. But my quick backstory begins 39 years ago yet tomorrow. So tomorrow I'll be 39. And my parents had me when they were 16 years old. And I grew up to my mom running a home daycare in my home. I'm the oldest of five, plus there were always five other kids in my home. And my dad was a correction officer, a prison guard. And so grew up for very humble beginnings and parents who raised me in the church, raised me in faith, but also had very limited beliefs to what they thought was possible. Nobody in my family had been to college. Nobody ever started a business. Nobody had ever earned six figures a year, right? And moved out of my parents' house at 17 years old, knowing what I was going to do with my life. I was going to be a financial planner, but was still a junior in high school when I moved out. So I waited tables, got through high school, was fortunate to get nearly a full ride to Drexel University, knowing what I was going to do. Went and worked at some interesting companies like BlackRock and Merrill Lynch and McGladrey and Poland, and big companies, and but knowing I was going to be an independent financial advisor. And then I started while in college knocking on doors, selling alarm systems. And the guy who owned that company was in real estate sales specifically, and convinced me I could sell real estate if I could sell alarm systems knocking on doors. So at 20 years old, I got into real estate as a residential real estate agent, and it took off really quickly. And what I learned early on was that all businesses are about solving people's problems. And in October 2006, when I got started, that was the peak of the real estate market. So homes were at their peak and the market started slowing down. And so a lot of homeowners who were kind of in a tough situation, and we would either come in and help them sell their home and guarantee that sale, or we would step in and buy their home. And that led us to running a home flipping business, which led us to starting a construction company, which then led us to renting homes to people and launching property management. And then as we started building a portfolio, we needed more capital. And so I started offering investment opportunities to invest in private funds with local, high net worth individuals. People call it, family and friends money, but at that time when I got started, all my family worked for me, and they all still do. And my friends were in their mid-20s as I was. So there wasn't a lot of family and friends money, but went to local, individuals, professionals, business owners, lawyers, doctors, engineers, and they started investing in our funds. And that allowed us to grow faster and then kind of expand the way that we could do what we do. And we've been centered around investing in attainable workforce housing that is and remain affordable for working families now. And we do that as a lender. We do that as an operator. We do that as a partner. We do that as a developer, running a series of investment funds. Today, over $5 billion in assets under management, hundreds of employees, over 250 in our corporate offices, many hundreds who are out in the field working on our properties. We own about 19,000 existing rental homes. We're providing housing to over 90,000 people. And our biggest way we deploy our money is as a lender. This year, we'll lend over $1 billion to real estate sponsors, operators who are providing attainable workforce housing. And then I also own a bank too, which has been a really cool experience that I bought in 2022 that works alongside DLP Capital and in doing what we're driven to do, building thriving communities.
Are you interested in real estate investing but don't know where to get started or think you don't have the time or money? Are you stuck in your W-2 because the golden handcuffs make it hard to walk away? If this sounds like you, check out impactequity.net and schedule some time to talk with the founder, Randy Smith. Randy went from massive income to leaving his W-2 through passive income, and he can help you do the same. www.impactequity.net.
You covered a lot of ground there. The first thing that kind of jumped out to me is, and I know you started out in alarm sales, which I think is amazing. I think there's no better way to cut your teeth as a salesperson versus doing the door-to-door. I had the bloody knuckle syndrome myself early on. I wasn't doing door-to-door home sales, but I was doing door-to-door small business sales in selling trash dumpster of all things.
Oh, very cool.
Back in the day in Orange County, bloody knuckling it in Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, selling dumpsters. So now I'm curious. I find that it's an amazing way to learn like core sales skills. Generally, these are very, very intense sales expectations and goals. Very few people actually make it. But do you think that was kind of paramount to the success that you're seeing today, going all the way back there? Or do you think that was just kind of another notch along the process?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I got a couple kind of perspectives on it. So one is, I'm a father of 3 boys now who are 11, 10, and 2, and so certainly I spend a lot of time thinking about, what are the things that make a difference in living a life of success and significance and joy and I've spent a lot of time trying to figure that out and what can I do as a father to help put my boys in the position to live fulfilled lives as adults and a couple of the things that I've learned, I've kind of put together this list of the 6 keys to a life of success, significance, and happiness. And 2 of them that I've spent the most time focusing on my children with are grit and a growth mindset. And so grit is that passion, perseverance towards long-term goals, kind of that hard work, not giving up, perseverance, right? And then a growth mindset is the belief that I can learn anything if I'm willing to do the work, right? The belief that there is no ceiling, there is no limit. And a lot of people struggle, even really driven people who are willing to work hard, struggle with these low ceilings and these limiting beliefs to what's possible. So I spent a lot of time trying to instill those skills and abilities and put my children in positions to improve. They're actually on my ride back from basketball with my oldest son yesterday. We had a 20-minute conversation about growth mindset as an example. But for me, I don't know what instilled it in me, but I had this belief from a very young age that if somebody else could do something, I could do it, and I could do it better because I have an example to follow. And I had that innate ability. When I was in 8th grade, I started shadowing financial advisors. And I was confident in 8th grade I could do their job, not better when I was an adult, but better now. And so I don't know what gave me that natural confidence, but I always had it. And when I got into alarm system sales, how I took the job was the gentleman who owned the company. I was waiting tables, and if anybody ever waited tables, you might have experienced where part of often at restaurants they'll say, "Hey, whoever sells the most of this tonight gets $50 or gets this or gets that," right? And so that night when he came into my restaurant I was working at, which was a Texas Roadhouse, it was filet mignons, right? So I was selling his table of 8 people fillets, right? And he was a sales guy who had trained up a lot of young salespeople, so he took a liking to me and convinced me to come talk to him. And when I came to talk with him, he told me that it was normal to make $2,000 a week selling alarm systems. Told me that that's what I should make. And so I went to work for him with that expectation that that was the norm, right? Which meant you had to sell about 10 alarm systems a week. And so I had that belief that that's what I should do. My first paycheck was $5,280. And I thought I was doing an average job, right? I only found out like literally years later that I became the #1 sales rep in America for ADT Security out of 100,000 plus sales reps. But I didn't know that at the time, which was probably a good thing, because I just thought I was doing what I was supposed to. I thought going out and knocking on 150, 200 plus doors a day was normal, right? I thought this level of success I was having was normal because he gave me that belief that was expected. And that was a big part of, I think, gaining and growing the confidence that if I could do that, I could sell anything. And if you could face, rejection. For me, it was rejection 50 out of every 51 doors. That gave me the confidence going into the next step of real estate.
I love it. So, you mentioned grit, which I love. I have grit up on my board as one of my core companies as well. I actually I waited tables for years as well at a Red Lobster all through college, oddly enough. And we had the same thing where we had to upsell, we had add-on sales. And I was the guy, like I would do anything I possibly could to win a $10 Starbucks gift card. And I don't even drink coffee. I just want to be the guy that's winning the coffee gift card. So now I know in your business, you guys have core belief systems that you have. You mentioned grit. There's another one that really is important to me, but I'd love to hear your thoughts around stewardship. And I'd also love to hear a little bit about living fully, because I think stewardship, I think, is great. And a lot of people talk about that, but living fully, I think, is something that most do not. So can you talk about both of those as well?
Yeah. So we at DLP have 10 core values, which is a lot. But I think those who we get the pleasure of coming into contact with, and we get the pleasure of serving, will say that we exemplify these core values. When I say we, meaning the team members who work at DLP, and we spend a lot of time building intentionally the culture we have and cultivating the right type of people who in many cases have these belief systems before they join us, and then put them in an environment where we really reward and make decisions based on these values. And stewardship is a really, really important one. It's arguably the most important core value to one of our 4 big stakeholder groups, which are the investors who invest with us. We have about 2,800 families who give us the honor of being stewards of their resources. And stewarding the capital is the obvious thing, right? Stewarding the financial resources, but also stewarding our resources of our time, stewarding our resources of the opportunities that we have every day across the spectrum of what we do, and thinking like an owner, and doing the best we can to execute on what people expect from us. And for us, our investors expect us to generate consistent distributions each and every month. They expect us to protect their money and never have losses. And they expect us to generate double-digit returns, right? And those are the expectations we've set with our investors. Those are the kind of messaging and the approach we've delivered that they expect when they come to work with us, right? They give us the responsibility and the expectation that we're the experts in what we do, right? We don't bring in investors who want to be us, right, in their investment with us. They want to put that money with us because they believe we're the best at what we do and can trust us to do that. So that's a really big deal. And when we spend a lot of time on internally making sure every one of us is empowered to be steward and to make the right decisions, make the best decision, to best steward the resources we have. Living fully, it's interesting that you asked about those two together, because living fully in many ways is being a great steward of all the areas of our lives. And so the way we've described it and think about it is, people ask me this question all the time, especially in, say, podcasts like we're in today. People say, how do you balance everything, right? How do you balance all the priorities? And the number one thing people say they need more in their lives is more time. They struggle with work-life balance, right? Everybody feels they don't have enough time today. And the way I think about it is it's work-life integration. It's how can I integrate all the different areas of my life together? And we call it the compass. And the compass is a circle, and we have the 8 F's of life around that compass, which is faith, family, friends, freedom, fun, fulfillment, fitness, and finance. And Jeff Bezos came out a couple years ago, and he said the same thing. Essentially, he said that people talk about work-life balance, and that he said that's a debilitating term. It's actually more like a circle. It's integrating those priorities together. And that's what we try to do and try to teach, is that you don't have to, while you're building your career, that doesn't mean you have to not be able to take care of yourself physically. That doesn't mean you have to be not present as a father. That doesn't even mean that you can't focus on golf if that's your priority. It's about figuring out how do you integrate these priorities together. Does that mean you have to be selective and say no to certain things? Of course. Right, but figuring out how do I go about living a life of fulfillment where I'm taking care of myself physically, where I'm a great father, a great husband, I'm engaged in my church, I'm pursuing the things that give me joy and passion, while I'm, building my, financial wealth and income and so forth. And so that's what we spend a lot of time on and embracing and teaching and helping our team members live fully. And for us at DLP, when people are so motivated and so driven to achieve the goals that we've set, a lot of times that's actually we're finding ourselves having to help throttle people back and make time and get out of the office. And I try to live that by example. And so I coach. I'm on season 17 of flag football coaching my kids, right? I coach basketball. We virtual school our kids, and we travel the country and the world. We have a full-time teacher who travels with us. We've built a lifestyle that allows us to live fully, despite the fact that I certainly have a very demanding amount of responsibility and work as a steward to our investors and my team members. But integrating it all together, and we put a lot of cool tools in place, which anybody wants any of those tools. We have a website called dlpelite.com. You can download all the free tools that we teach and we provide on how to live fully. And the first book I wrote called Building an Elite Organization is really building a great business. I wrote a second book called Building an Elite Career, which is really as much about anything about personal development as it is, building your career, and talk about these different tools and how you go about, living a fulfilled life.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you for walking through that. I think that when I saw Living Fully, that it ties in line with what we talk about in Abundance as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brandon Turner talks about like the wagon wheel, where if there's any piece of that wagon wheel that's off, it's going to be a pretty bumpy ride. And I like to think of the balance piece more of balancing. And there are going to be certain areas of your life that are going to require more time at certain stages or seasons. And I think it's almost irresponsible to think that you could be 100% in all areas all of the time. I don't think it's practical. So I love is it 7 Fs that you said, or 8 Fs?
Yep.
8 Fs. Okay. I need to go back and revisit that. I think there's 1 or 2 that I might have missing on my wagon wheel. So thank you for sharing that.
And to that note, Randy, one of the free tools in that link that anybody can download is a tool called Life Assessment. I stole the kind of original idea of this actually from Darren Hardy and the Compound Effect, and we kind of evaluated it across the 8 Fs. But and I do this at least quarterly, probably closer to monthly, where I go through and I assess my life across these 8 areas. And it takes 7 minutes to do it. And to your point, never am I a 10 in all areas, ever, right? And if you are, you probably need to raise the bar on what you expect out of yourself, right? So never am I a 10 in all areas. And it fluctuates, right? And it changes, right? And by assessing where I'm at today, that allows me to make the conscious decision. Do I need to spend more of my most precious resource, my time, in one of those areas of my life? And there might be seasons of your life where you say, no, I'm okay right now that I'm not having as much maybe fun as maybe I'm going to have later, because I got, some really important things I'm working on right now. Or maybe family is not as big of a priority right now at a certain season, right? And whatever the case is, that's fine. But at least consciously understanding that, because when you make the conscious decision to say, hey, I'm okay with this area and not being okay, you're going to feel a lot greater level of fulfillment than you're not feeling the guilt that you're not executing in a certain area as much as you'd want to when you made the conscious decision around that.
I love it. Yeah. And I think it's, you've got influences in your life, whether it's family or direct reports or whatever that is. And if you're communicating with those people where those focuses are as well, you might go to your colleagues that you're working with and say, I'm in a season of family because we're coming into the holidays or whatever it is. And I need to spend more time here. And if they know that you've got a track record of doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, they know you're going to come back to them at some point in the future, which lets them take the reins too. So
well said.
Let's talk a little bit about the business itself. And anybody that spends any amount of time with you can tell that your energy is contagious. You clearly are on top of it. But I suspect that there's a culture at DLP that goes beyond probably a culture that I knew in very large corporate America. It sounds like it's family, close knit. Sounds like trust and integrity is really important there. But can you talk a little bit about that process of building the culture, or did it just evolve? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it.
So I say in the very, very beginning, it started just happening naturally, and it started just kind of building a culture centered around kind of people like me, right? And it's kind of what you do in the beginning, and a culture of naturally needing to work hard and be driven and have a high level of curiosity, and because you had to figure stuff out, things weren't in place. But probably within 2 or 3 years of my journey, I'm on year 18 now of DLP, and it started becoming very intentional in how we were building the culture, and started putting a lot of real focus around what kind of culture we want to build, and really building cultures around what type of people am I going to bring into the organization, and more than anything, right? Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks, once said in an interview for, some sort of article, they said, how do you get people at Starbucks to smile so much? And he said, well, it's really simple. I hire people that like to smile, right? And so that's, the first thing I'd say is getting clear about what kind of culture do we want, what values do we want to exemplify, what kind of environment do we want to be, and then attracting those kind of people into the organization. And then at the center of that, then, there's a terrible quote that says, business would be so easy if it wasn't for the people. And a lot of companies have that kind of mindset. Our focus is around investing in people. We are for you, right? And there's a great book on that. I think it's called For You. I can look it up real quick. Jeff, something who was the head of marketing for Chick-fil-A, Know Who You're For is what it's called. It's a great book. And that's kind of the mindset we have of, we are for you, right? Your success is our success, right? I want to be a part of your success. I know if I'm a part of your success and living fully and accomplishing what you want in life, we're going to achieve amazing things. And that's the mindset we have. When you genuinely believe that, when you genuinely believe that people are on the asset side of the balance sheet, not the liability side of the balance sheet, and you have that focus and that mindset, it's amazing what happens.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. And people will self-select in and self-select out based on that as well, where, if they know that they've got to show up fully in all areas of their life, if they're becoming a member of DLP and they're not that individual, they're probably not going to raise their hand, I suspect, to be a part of the team. So, yeah, and clearly that's had a big piece to the success that you guys have seen. And I think it's such a neat story how you essentially younger sales guy, moved into house flipping, and then it's kind of like, as you progressed through different phases of the business growth, like new opportunities open up where you can help more and more people to where you are today. I think you mentioned 90,000 people are living in the homes that you're building. So can we talk a little bit about what you guys are doing today with attainable housing and the solution that's solving for, and why it is that you chose to go down that path in the first place?
Yeah, I'd love to. I just want to hit one other quick note, sort of as I get into that. So, the verse of my life that I live by is, "To whom much is given, much is required." Luke 12:48, and I know, and probably just about everybody on this podcast, hopefully feels this way, that I've been blessed so incredibly. Right, I live in the greatest country on earth, the best time to be alive. I know Jesus, was raised in the church. And was given many specific skills and abilities and opportunities that it's my responsibility to shepherd and make as big of an impact with my time on earth, as big of a kingdom impact as I can. And that's really fundamentally why we're focused on, attainable workforce housing, and realize that it's a space that we are in a desperate crisis in America of affordable housing. But as I learned a lot about affordable housing and the challenge of people being able to, when I talk about affordable housing, I'm talking about housing for working families. And as I realized that, our purpose at DLP, Dream, Live, Prosper, is what DLP stands for. And so Dream, Live, Prosper, passionately making an extraordinary impact through building thriving communities. And so for us, our focus and everything we do is around building thriving communities. And the way I think about that is a thriving community, a place where people are thriving and making an impact and living fully. It starts with having attainable housing. But that's just the anchor. That's just the starting point. That's not all it takes to be a part of a thriving community. We have 8 elements of a thriving community that we try to focus on, and that need to be able to build a thriving community, not just a safe place to live, is what led us down a path of really investing in communities. So not investing in scattered real estate, but almost all of our investments are where it's a whole community where we have on-site staff, we have a full set of amenities, services, church service, Bible study, community events, places for people to connect and congregate, activities for kids, a real community And so for us, that's, multifamily, that's built for rent, single family, that's some manufactured housing, and that's even, people would refer to as RV campgrounds as well. And our focus is that we want people to average at least 8-year average occupancies within our properties. And industry normal in apartment communities is about 15 or 16 months. And we want every year, we want 90% of our residents to renew. And actually our leases renewed every 2 years, not every year, because we want people to stay. We want them to build relationships with their neighbors. I believe in the statement that it takes a village to raise a child. And I want our neighborhood to be that village where people have real relationships with one another. And it didn't hit me. So this has been the business model we've been on for a long time. We've been focused on is figuring out how do we scale a business focused on providing attainable workforce housing, which has never been harder to do than it is today. And it didn't hit me until just a few years ago. Actually, one of my leaders mentioned this to me. When I was a kid, I moved 37 times before I was 17 years old. I went to 4 different schools in 3rd grade alone. The number one indicator of success, if you look at a population as a whole, is 3rd grade literacy scores. It is such an indicator of future successes that many counties in America size their prisons based on 3rd grade literacy scores, because they know if you have low 3rd grade literacy scores, more people are going to end up in prison in whatever that is, 15 years from now, right? So I went to, again, multiple different schools in 3rd grade, moved 4 different times. Fortunately for me, I didn't have any learning problems and was very blessed, and I didn't have those challenges. But for many kids, changing neighbors, changing schools, changing support systems is very, very challenging. And so knowing that that's such a big priority, education is a big part of a thriving community, but stability in the household is a big focus and a big part of what we're striving to do.
That's powerful. I'm curious, are there communities that you're trying to mirror or that inspired what it is that you're trying to create? Or is it
that's a great
an ideal target?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I never thought of it that exact way, but I live in St. John County, which is St. Augustine, Florida, and St. John County has been the fastest growing county in America for the last 3 years in a row. And I chose to move here about 8-9 years ago because I determined that my oldest kids were 2 and 3. This is where I wanted to raise my kids. And it's the bottom of the Bible Belt. It's great weather. It's great lifestyle. It's very family centered. And I think it is. And we're one of our goals is to officially make St. John County the number one place to live in the country. And I think it's the closest thing I've come across to a thriving community where there are incredible amount of activity for families, for kids. There's a tremendous amount of people here who have strong faith. There's great education. We have by far the best schools in Florida. Like, it's not even close. Our 3rd grade literacy scores are 88%. The next closest county is 72%, and then it falls under 60%. So by far the best schools in Florida, some of the best schools in America. So it has a lot of these key elements of a robust job market coming off of Jacksonville, which is the number 3 job market in America. So it's got the elements of a thriving community as a whole kind of county that we thrive to emulate within the physical properties we build and develop and operate.
Interesting. Yeah. And generally those type of statistics are available to, I would say, not the average earner. So it sounds like that's a driver to make that available to a broader population than just the elite, essentially, right?
Exactly. And that's the problem, in the nicest places that most of us would like to live are the places that have the biggest challenge with having attainable housing for working families, for your proverbial teachers, social workers, et cetera. So here in St. John County, an average family earns, about $90,000 a year, $100,000 a year, which is good, right? Compared to the national average, it's pretty good. But when you can't find any housing, even for rent, for a family, if you need more than one bedroom for less than $3,000 a month, that's not affordable. And so even in places here, which is St. John County is the highest average income in the state of Florida, the cost of living is so high that it's still a challenge that many people who work here in this great job market have to now commute far in or are struggling to make ends meet because there's not housing here they can afford. So absolutely, that's the case.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I love what you guys are doing. And I think that's partly why I've chosen to partner with you guys and invest with you guys as well. And we'll
Thank
ultimately
you.
be bringing that to my investors here in a little bit. And I'm, certainly in the time that we have left here, we can't do justice to the offerings that you have for investors, but can you give a very high level overview of the different types of opportunities you have available for investors, for folks that would like to partner with an organization like yours?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give the kind of high level. So everything we do is centered around, attainable workforce housing. So we have funds that invest in existing housing communities, invest equity into existing housing communities where we own the community, we own the properties. In that fund, we have about 15,000 apartments in that fund, 15,000 rental units right now. Then we have a fund that builds brand new housing communities, invests equity in building brand new housing. And then we have two funds that lend money to other sponsors, operators who are building thriving communities, who are investing in attainable workforce housing. So all of it's housing, but sometimes we're a lender, sometimes we're a developer, sometimes we're an operator. And all the funds are similar in the respect that they're all private REITs. They're all have tax efficiency, some even more than others. They all are centered around putting investors first, being great stewards, in which we provide preferred returns out before we even earn a management fee. All of our funds provide preferred returns with distribution options on a regular basis. All but one provide distributions every month. The other one does quarterly. They're all targeted to essentially provide double-digit returns, and all have done so on every period since we've started. So there are a lot of similarities, but different reasons you choose one or the other based on tax efficiencies or how much current income versus total return you're looking for. All of them you can invest via qualified money and non-qualified money. All of them you can invest through Charles Schwab, Fidelity, et cetera, large custodial platforms. And they're all making an impact, in our impact funds mandated to make an impact on providing housing that is and remain affordable for working families.
Love it. Wow, that's a great summary. I am looking actually at a 220-page document that goes into that in much, much more detail for folks that are interested in it. Certainly, Don will provide his contact info and website, things like that afterwards. So thank you for walking through that. And I feel like this could be like a 10-part series, and I won't fill your calendar with that, but hopefully would love to have you on maybe in the future after I get to know you guys even more. But let's, if we can, talk a little bit. I have a handful of questions I'd like to ask everybody at the end, but I want to be respectful of your time and the listeners' time as well. But can you talk a little bit about mindset? It seems like is a very big piece of what you're doing. Can you talk about some of the tools or some of the strategies that you use to continue to focus on things like grit and growth mindset and those types of things as well? I love that space, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well, how you're growing.
Yeah, thank you. So we have a lot of different tools that we've built and provide for free. And many of them, when I say we built them, in many cases we stole them from others and admit that kindly. But all the kind of tools we built are on dlpelite.com. Click on free tools and a lot of different things for personal development. And at the end of the day, things kind of come back to a couple areas. Number one is how you spend your time. And number two is who you spend your time with, and focusing on those two areas, I think, are really important. And so some of the specific things I do. So number one is having the term from my friend Hal Elrod, fellow GoBundance member, Miracle Morning. So starting off with specific, routines in the morning. I start off with a walk with Jesus every morning, which is I listen to scripture, read and listen to scripture while I walk and get going and drink a little coffee, and then I do some meditation. I use a tool called Muse, which is like a headband. And then I work out. I use most days I use Tonal, which is that kind of workout machine. I put my earbuds in. This is the first time I'm in my studio here that I've not used earbuds in probably 10 years. So sorry for the string hanging here, but I couldn't get this hooked up to this computer. But anyway, I've used Audible and I completed this year 84 books. So I read a lot of books. I love to read. So any chance I get, I'm listening. So I do that while I'm working out. I try to conclude my day. It doesn't get to do it every day. Before I go home, I try to at least walk 30 minutes outdoors. I believe in this great power in walking outdoors. So I try to walk as much as I can in face-to-face meetings, on calls, but then also just taking time to wrap things up. So those are some of the things that I do. that have helped me a lot, but the biggest thing for me is getting the mindset of reading a lot. So whether that's reading personal development books, reading autobiographies and biographies of incredible people that help inspire and motivate me, and then creating space to focus on the areas of life outside of business. And the last thing I'll say is, in living fully, a lot of people get confused about trying to multitask and try to do a lot of things at the same time, which there's an element, some things you can multitask and do at the same time. Some things you can't. And the main secret to that is being present. And so what I try to do is be present in whatever I'm doing, right? So I know some people say, hey, I'm going to get home every day with my kids at 5:30 because I got to build that habit and be there for my kids. But then they're either, worst case, on the phone, whether it's on calls or on emails or text or whatever, or their mind somewhere else. And if their mind's not there, it's worse than not even being there with your kids, right? So being able to be present in whatever you're doing and keeping yourself organized and focused so that you can be fully where your mind is, where your body is, that's sort of the secret of getting fulfillment out of life, I believe, and where I would try to put a lot of focus.
Love it. Yeah. It just everything you say, I've got more and more questions. So we'll have to stop here at some point. But I'm curious. 84 books. I'm curious your thoughts on. I do the same thing. I listen to 2 or 3 books per month as a goal at the beginning of the year, and then I struggle with. Should I listen to more books, or should I just really focus on a handful of books? And do exactly what they say in it. So I'm curious your thoughts on that. Having 84 books this year, I think I know where you're going, but
probably 9 or 10 of those books, maybe even more, I'd have to check. I've read before. So I'm reading them again. And some books like Chase the Lion by Mark Batterson, I read every single Thanksgiving week every year. And I usually have 2 or 3, sometimes 4 going at a time. And I don't, I completed 84. I started some books I didn't finish that, didn't resonate, didn't learn something new. I didn't hold my attention. And a lot of times they're on similar theories, right? Or similar areas, right? If I say, hey, I need to grow in my coaching ability of my leaders, right? I'll read 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 books on coaching, right? If I say, hey, I need to get better at having difficult conversations, right? I'll read a bunch of books on that. If I need to just get better at leadership, or I need to get better in a specific, specific business area, I'll read a bunch of books on that topic or that area. So I think that makes a lot of great sense to do. For a while, I've wanted to become a better storyteller, and so I've consumed a lot of books on storytelling. And then what I tend to do is whenever I start going down a path, I want to get really great at something, and I find who I think is the best at it, then I reach out to them, and then I get them not only to come talk to me, but come talk to our investors, come talk to our team. And then we read a book together as a company every month. We have for 13 years now, called Driven for Greatness, and different leaders present on that book every month. And so I don't have all the answers to it, but that's kind of what I've done. I think you just do whatever works for you. But I love to go down a rabbit hole a bit of topic I want to get better at and read multiple different books, kind of one after another, sometimes even a couple at a time around that topic.
Awesome. Any particular book in the last couple of months that really sticks out, one that you think folks should go out and listen to?
Well, I'm going to cheat here a little bit and look at my Audible account and tell you exactly what I've read that's been great of recent. So Chase the Lion I just mentioned that I just reread. Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. Everything Adam Grant is great, but Hidden Potential is great. And he actually talks in that book a lot about the power of walking outdoors. Pretty interesting. Decisive by Chip and Dan Heath, great book on how you think about making crucial decisions. And most people think there's 2 options. There's always a third option. I think it's really interesting. Probably many have read this one already, but the Elon Musk book, I'm not like the biggest Elon fan in the world, but I like him. And it was an awesome book to listen to. That was a really good one. Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren, I just completed. Playing to Win by Roger Martin. I just reread that one.
Okay.
So those are some of the ones I've read recently that were really good. And so one more, Sacred Pace by Terry Looper. Terry's now, after I read that book, becoming a good friend of mine, I guess you should say. I'm a little bit of a mentor to me, but really great book called Sacred Pace and Terry runs a multi-billion-dollar company. And he says he hasn't worked more than 40 hours a week in the last 30 years while growing his multi-billion-dollar company. And it's a really interesting approach, how he calls it gets neutral and listens to God's guidance before making big decisions, and how he's gone about integrating or balancing life's priorities. It's a really great one.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, so I've got plenty of books here for the next couple of months. Thank you for that. Are you a podcast guy or any podcasts
I don't
that
listen
you
to
like?
that many podcasts.
Okay.
Be honest, I mean, I listen to people who give me the great honor of coming and joining them, like you. But I'm always so consumed in books. I don't listen to as many podcasts as others do.
Anything you do to kind of stay on top of economic trends?
So I've, we have team here at DLP who's very focused on it, who are doing a lot of that research, who are bringing it forward to me on a regular basis. I prescribe to a number of different, trade kind of publications, more now kind of email and pushed information. So, and getting asked to go speak. Like yesterday, I did a panel with, 500 investors in the room, and I was on a panel with 3 economists and me, and then the head of Tricon Global and such, and just getting to be in those kind of environments with great people. And then I'm in a group called Tiger 21. We meet every month. We bring in all kinds of economic experts all the time. So fortunately, just in the business I'm in, and the kind of circles I'm in, I probably get more opinions around the economic situation than I'd like at times.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are some of the things that I do. I'm not a big, I really don't look for I don't pay attention to news. I don't read the news. I don't use, I probably should admit this, but I don't really use social media. So I try not to distract myself with things I can't do anything about. It's kind of my role. If I can't do anything about it, I'm not going to pay attention to it. So it's kind of mindset I take.
Love it. Love it. Well, very quick, I've got just a couple of other questions I want to ask, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Sure.
I'll get you on your way. But knowing that both of you and I are part of GoBundance, one of the pillars there is bucket list items. So is there a recent bucket list item you've checked off your list or one you're hoping to in the near future?
Yeah, I love bucket list concepts, and a good friend of mine is Trav Bell, the bucket list guy, is who he is, and I think I might have had intro Trav to GoBundance, and but I've had him come to my events a couple of times. It's a really cool way to think about it. I encourage people. It's more than just going on cool trips, but it's a really cool way to think about bucket lists. So for us, we virtually school our kids and we travel a lot. And our BHAG as a family is to have 1,000 extraordinary days in 100 different places before our kids go to college. So we travel a good amount. So the biggest bucket list item I'd say on my list this year was New Zealand. And we actually went and spent 8 weeks in New Zealand. And then we did another trip where we kind of did the Big West, we called it. And we did Jackson Hole to Glacier to Yellowstone to Bozeman, in between there to Vancouver to Alaska, and kind of did that over 30 days and did a lot of cool kind of unique experiences over the course of that as well.
Love it. Love it. Okay, one final question. And this, I'm going to tailor a little bit different. So if, and you're very far from this, obviously, but if you were currently in a W-2 role, similar to a lot of the listeners that are listening today, and you had $100,000 that you were going to invest and you could not invest into a DLP fund, where would you place that capital?
Like specifically?
Or a category is fine too. Yeah.
So I tend, and I do passively invest. I actually, made a $500,000 investment today into another fund manager. This one happened to be in private equity, but kind of lower mid market private equity. But typically what I end up investing in, and this is because of my bias of my areas of expertise, is I end up investing in real estate and private credit, albeit in slightly different areas. So example, I invest in self-storage, I invest in car washes with people I build personal relationships with. I believe in investing in anything, but certainly investing in private funds. It's about the leadership team. And do I believe that the person I'm looking across from is going to make the right decisions when things are difficult? And am I betting on that jockey? And so when I find great jockeys, people I believe in, people I think have the right values, who are going to do the right thing, who have a business model that works, that's what I like to invest in. So I invest in a lot of kind of adjacent areas to what I do, other private credit, other real estate fund managers.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I think, that's a great answer to it as well. Well, good. Well, anything that you'd care to share with the audience today, how to reach you, or any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I'll just say, we're big. I believe that, part of my ministry is, and we do a lot around, ministry, a lot around trying to make an impact outside of our for-profit business on starting with the housing crisis. Our ministry focus is the same as our for-profit, just different approaches to how we build thriving communities. And part of our ministry is trying to pour into people's lives, from the 2,800 families that invest with us to the sponsors we partner with to our team members. So we do a lot of different forms of content. We do kind of big events every a couple of times a year. We do lots of webinars. We give out lots of free tools. There is no sales pitch to it. People can't ever believe they come to our events or whatnot, and we never try to sell them anything. So there's lots of content. If you go to our website, dlpcapital.com, and click events, you'll see lots of virtual and live events. We don't make any money on any of them. They're all free. Some of the bigger ones are invite kind of only type of thing. We want to make sure we're going to give value to you, but it's all part of our ministry. We're not making money. We think pouring into people is a big part of our responsibility. So check that out. Go to DLP Elite for the free tools I mentioned. My email is don@dlpcapital.com, but dlpcapital.com is our main website. You can check out our events and content, lots of free resources there.
Awesome. Well, Don, thank you so much. This is far better than I even expected it would be. I spent a lot of time listening to your stuff, pre-recorded stuff, but this has been fantastic. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Randy. It's been a great pleasure. Appreciate you.
Awesome. All right. And to our listeners, as always, thank you again for joining us today. Encourage you to continue your education process, but more importantly than that, make a decision to invest in your first passive investment. I'm convinced once you do, you'll be so happy that you did and wish that you had started sooner. So be sure to join us again next Thursday for another great episode. And thank you again for joining us today.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.